Welcome back to the Ikko Ikki Abridged, where last time we did a bunch of explosive defences of Nagashima and some other pointless defences, but more importantly, we pushed on and took the capital at Kyoto, losing half of our invasion force to bribes along the way. But we got there in the end and the bribing just kind of stopped at some point, so that's looking okay. Now we just have to survive for a year to win the campaign, and we start off with this 2-stack attack at Osaka Castle. We can just hit them with the same thing we did against the Ashikaga Shogunate. Stage 1, have our good sacrifice units meet them at the northern bridge and see how much damage we can do. I think I did pull them back as well, like in the Ashikaga Shogunate battle after a bit. Meanwhile, the south side of the castle is going to be a little bit different to usual because all of their second army came through here, meaning there was so much stuff running about that not all of them got distracted by the towers. And in fact, one of the towers has actually been decapped somehow over here, so they can actually influence the capture point sometimes, it seems. They just usually don't. This other tower over here is gradually killing this group. So perhaps 2/3 of an army are just standing around over here, but enough stuff is attacking the southern wall that we're going to get to see some unique action here. Enough units are coming by that they're going to come in and actually fight us in melee. To start with, they have to make a bunch more extra climbs and stand in front of our archers for a while. You can see the effect of armor saves here. It looks like plenty more arrows are hitting these guys than the damage suggests. But eventually enough of them get up, and here we go, we're going to have a battle up on the walls. Luckily, I've got like 5 units of Yari Ashigaru in the interior of the castle, so they can just run out and start fighting, and while they're real units, so this means we're taking real losses, the enemy are also taking real losses in greater numbers. They're fighting below a tower, and of course we can replenish right after this fight. So, doesn't matter that much. Eventually this southern front is pacified in this method. Now checking in with the northern front, I'm doing the thing where I fall back behind some trash at the big second wall, and then that wall's packed with gunners and archers, and they're pretty much able to kill off everything else. All of the friendly fire they'll be incurring doesn't matter because it's just our necromanceable militia units that are in there, and that's all good. Looks like these gunner retainers still haven't quite been killed. They're probably racking up a few kills themselves in that melee. Here we are a bit later. Basically everything routed at both main attack fronts. Then the enemy stood around for a while. Some of their generals stood under the towers, and the guys trying to capture that tower in the corner stood there for a while longer looking at it but never doing it. What actually happened was they eventually chain mounted because one of the towers killed their general, but skipping forwards, here's the end result of the battle. Looks like we absolutely annihilated them, killing over 6,000 enemies, and pretty much everything we lost will come back to life instantly, so that's all good. But the Suzuki aren't done attacking me. They've got a stack of pure trash that they are throwing at Nagashima, so we need to blow these guys up now. For this one, I'm just going to give you 3 premium juicy explosions to represent the roughly 10-minute process of me blowing the entire army up, and otherwise not playing the game because it plays itself on this map at this stage. It's getting so easy. And against 1 stack that's mostly militia, don't have to do anything at all. And here comes the third one. Wait for it. Looks like it was a long shot. There we go. So yes, I kept doing that for a while. Here's the result. We killed like 3,000 enemies, lost about nothing, and the mangonels were top table, so good work to them. Still getting that XP. Now then, we've got some actual military business to attend to because we need to move up our front line around Kyoto so as to better choke point it from the north. I started doing this last time, moving units up to our Hatakeyama front. There they link up with the armies guarding the Hatakeyama front and quickly overwhelm that castle there. So that in itself is a new and better choke point, but we do need to keep going to get the castle that's to the north of Kyoto so that there are fewer avenues of approach to Kyoto. This is the next turn now, and at Kyoto you can see I've been recruiting a lot of good units. We've now got a full stack of really good stuff hidden outside Kyoto, plus inside a full stack garrison with a load of good gunners thrown in as well, so that's a pretty good defensive setup. Then we move along to the north of Kyoto and need to take first this castle, mainly just because it's in the way. This choke points the enemy's access to the western part of Honshu, but really we want this next castle which choke points their access to Kyoto. At this stage, we actually have something like 3 times the number of regions you need to win the campaign, so we could actually just lose everything, or lose 2/3 of everything, if we keep Kyoto and still win. So guarding this castle is what's important, and now that's going to be a bit easier. It's an awkward situation because that choke point actually has 2 castles on both sides, so there's no single point you can defend to guarantee you'll always face all of the enemy's invasion with all of your defences, but still, that'll do for now. You know what we need now? We need another defense of Nagashima Castle, I think. It's been too long. This time it's the Oda. They brought an army that was packed with samurai and was actually pretty good. Managed to get some funky sideways shooting out of the mangonel, where it doesn't face its target for some reason. Pretty good, but has the same result. We blow a bunch of them up. In this defense I was doing things a little bit differently to normal actually. I kind of discovered that putting some extra archers in that little gallery overlooking the stairs means you get more kills. It means they also get sacrificed once the melee starts. But you get enough more kills from shooting at the enemy walking up the causeway or the corridor there. That is worth it. Generally you don't have enough space up on the main section of all to put all your archers anyway, so you might as well. So if you're stuck in this situation, do that and do this. Just keep blowing up. That's all that really matters. So we do that, and by the end of it, not a very good battle for the mangonels, not many enemies to kill, and everyone else was grabbing all the kills by the looks of things. But as the Oda stopped again at Nagashima. They've got an army there marching towards the capital as well, we'll watch out for those guys. In the Ashikaga Shogunate turn, their Metsuke, who had just wasted the last 3 turns trying to bribe that nearby castle and failing, eventually takes my bait. I left a unit next to him, hoping he'd waste a turn trying to bribe that one unit, and he does do it, so that worked out I guess. Then the Ashikaga Shogunate's monks are at it again. We've got a rebellion here, with my officer who's super disloyal. That balance bar's really even, so if you auto-resolve this, we might lose it, but I really didn't want to fight, so I just did the old save and auto-resolve. As it happens, it gives me a Pyrrhic victory, but most of the casualties were the garrison units. That was very generous. It seems the auto-resolve was doing it in the way that I would have done it manually, sacrificing those guys first. So it was okay in the end. Now I need to set up another sacrifice so that Metsuke doesn't get up to more trouble, because he is just 1 or 2 turns of bribing away from ruining everything for us. There's that Oda army setting up to attack the capital, but we've got a very steadfast defense, so not worried too much about that. I've got some reinforcements en route from Owaji Island, including some western cannons that I've hired. Not sure we'll have a chance to use them on something, but I'm going to add them to our armies in this area and see if we can blow some stuff up with those guys. We've now got much more stuff in this area than we need, mainly because I'm defending behind the front line against rebellions so much. If the monks weren't here, we'd have tons of stuff at the very front. That Oda army does attack the capital, but the balance bar is super far in our favour. The AI won't cancel a siege when it sees you have hidden units nearby, so they're willing to make these stupid attacks. And there we go, we can just kill them with an auto-resolve. I was interested in fighting in Kyoto, because it has a unique historical map, but as I recall it's also one of the worst unique historical maps. It's just like a giant square or something. But anyway, that battle's over. Let's get to a much more important battle. It's another Oda army led by a guy who looks exactly the same as the guy we just killed. And they're attacking Nagashima Castle of all places. This doesn't happen very often. And interestingly, in this fight, we got the thing again where the recording didn't pick up any sound, so a relaxing time to sit back and blow up the enemy. One other thing is that because it's in winter, you might have noted, the mangonel shots actually have snow on them while they're flying through the air in winter. They're normally black when you shoot in other seasons. Is that intentional? I don't know, probably not actually. An okay showing for the mangonels, and we defeated yet another army there. Now the sound comes back, and I came up with an actual strategy for something we could do here to help ourselves out. I realised the Ashikaga Shogunate, they've only got 3 regions left, and they're all next to the front line, so what we could do is try to focus down these 3 regions at all costs, because that will then delete all of their agents, and the monks doing all the rebellions, and the Metsuke, who could bribe us into oblivion at any time, will just automatically die. So I decided to make that a priority. The first one's pretty easy. There's this barely defended castle just south of Kyoto, and we can use our really good army made at Kyoto to just instantly stomp in there. Now we need to go both to the right and to the south to use 2 different directional systems. I'm going to split off half of this force, well some of this force that is, and go to join these gunners who went out from Kyoto to besiege the castle to the right. And now that balance bar is good enough to steal this place for free. This time though, this castle kind of sucks, and what I don't want is to make this the new front line. I'd rather Kyoto be the front line because it's more defensible. So we can just pop out the vassal instead. That's just going to be a buffer for us. And now we'll go back. Our goal here isn't to do anything other really than defeat the Ashikaga Shogunate, so we don't need to hold their territory afterwards. And we go for the other one to the south as well. An awkward castle because it can be attacked from multiple sides. And again, once I'm done killing them, I get the option to have a vassal, and I will do just that. The vassal provides a slight buffer, not really because the AI will just declare war on your vassals, but for like 1 or 2 turns where they might forget to do that, it does stop the enemy from moving through this area. So that's that. Now the Shogunate are dead, and because there's smoke absolutely everywhere, you can't really tell, but their agents are now gone. There are far fewer agents standing around than there were before. The smoke, by the way, is because not only have I been doing damage in battles, but enemy ninjas are sabotaging everything constantly, and I just stopped bothering to repair it because it's too expensive. I just let them sabotage stuff to their heart's content. I wanted to trade with my new vassals and realised I could trade with my old vassals as well. I haven't been able to trade for most of the campaign because Osaka is my capital, and because it was cut off, you have to have like trade access to your capital to trade anywhere across your territory. So I wasn't allowed to have trade deals with the vassals in my own territory, but now there is a trade route all the way back to Osaka. So that's good. I'm making a couple of thousand extra per turn. I also sold the trade rights to my vassals to get some extra money in the short term. And then, moving on, it's a battle at Nagashima Castle. This time it's the Tokugawa, and they've brought a not very good army, not even bothering to bring a full stack, so I couldn't even be bothered to fight it. The balance bar wasn't that good, but the result of an auto-resolve was okay, so we skip having to do that. Still though, got some annoying rebel action going on. There's something up there northwest of the capital, and a big one at Himeji Castle. This is a place I didn't really want to sacrifice to rebels, but we're going to do it right now. The balance bar is slightly in their favour, and you do always lose an auto-resolve, even if it's ever so slightly in the enemy's favour. So we just lose it, and that's the end of that. I could send armies back to retake it, but at this late stage in the campaign we don't need it. As I said, I can sacrifice 2/3 of my territory, about 50 castles in all, and still meet the victory conditions. They're quite generous. So we can just let rebels start taking over realistically because it might not matter anymore. I decided to send a few troops to take this little castle over here because this one's kind of neat to take down because it's in its own little blob surrounded by mountains. Taking that out doesn't open us up to any new angles of attack, but it does remove one possible angle of attack if they were to make units here. So gather together some stuff and we take that castle, and that's that. Now the border's a bit nicer. Basically they can attack just to the north end of this little hook of mountains, or to the west where our vassal now are, or indeed they can attack directly at Osaka Castle, but that hasn't gone very well for them so far. With our Hatakeyama choke point, nothing was happening, so I decided to just advance, because while we're sitting in 2 castles on our side, there are 2 castles on the enemy side, so I thought we might as well go sit in those instead. Although with one rule, I couldn't be bothered to fight any actual decisive engagements for it, so I was like, I'll go and take these castles, as long as we can just overwhelm them and take them for free and then just replenish back the losses. We end up with this balance bar after trying some fancy stuff with fighting outside of the castle and failing. And that's good enough. We'll take that and steal this one castle, so that cuts off most of the Hatakeyama stuff up along that northern road, all that territory that was ours in part 1, you may remember. We actually could go up there and keep taking it, not that there's any point, because it is all choke pointed all the way up the road until you get to the Noto Peninsula. But anyway, I also went to the south and took the other castle in the pair here. So we've got our choke point going once again, and we're almost around this lake. If we keep going south, we'll actually be back down to Nagashima, so we're getting somewhere with this. It's starting to look neater and neater. Some rebel action. This is one of these rebel armies where I was like, I could just let them take it, but this was probably one of the fights that happened like right at the start of a new filming session or something, where I'm more optimistic and I've got a bit more energy for doing stuff, so I was like, okay, we'll actually fight these guys and try to keep this castle just because it looks nicer to not have the rebels be everywhere. The enemy do have the advantage, but we've got all the stuff inside the castle that can't rout, so they can just plow on in. They're going to lose hundreds of troops to these nice big climbs, and then they probably won't beat our Ashigaru with their Ashigaru. That's the plan. And of course, things like our town guard and our samurai will mow the enemy down, especially because they are sending their archers in as melee assault troops. That's not going to work. So that's that. Then over here with the lake, I move on to attack the next castle down the lake. I'm using pretty much all the troops in this area, so I'm barely defending the Hatakeyama front to the north at all now. Just going to commit to this. We grab this castle off the Oda, and yes, now we're nearly there. There's the nice big Azuchi castle right there, and if we take that place, Nagashima will actually be connected to our territory again and will be our front line. I say again, it wasn't at the start, so we will have actually got it in for the first time. As we move on to the next turn, the Oda do counterattack. However, one of my armies outside the castle was hidden, triggering this ambush, and we certainly want to auto-resolve that, because if we did it manually, this would go very badly with our second army just not participating. So there we go, we take down that Oda army. Interestingly, the survivors move to be near Nagashima Castle, and then they're reinforced by some other units. But still, that stack is now in defeated mode, even though most of the units in it right now weren't defeated. And that's going to come in useful right now, because Nagashima is being attacked, and it's a 4-stack attack with all kinds of stuff coming in. This could be a very difficult defense, but as we've seen before with Nagashima, if too many people attack it, it just kind of breaks. So actually only part of the first army actually attacked, and we just killed them easily. Everything else didn't even appear on the minimap. I think they are out there somewhere just hidden because it's foggy, but they didn't do anything, leading to this win on the timer. And because that Oda army has technically already lost this turn, the second defeat means the army's defeated, along with all the new units it just got reinforced with. So we sneakily took out an extra enemy stack there, thanks to some good old-fashioned game rule irregularities. Handy stuff. And then another unique event occurs. The Imagawa send a fleet to attack my one decent fleet, raiding this trade route and just blocking off the entrance to the sea between Shikoku and Honshu. And looks like we've got ourselves an actual naval battle featuring our foreign ship with cannons and all. To start with, they're firing away at the enemy's main position off to our east, but there's actually going to be a little fight before that, because a couple of the enemy's reinforcement ships appeared right on the edge of our line, so they can fight with our various Kabuya type ships. We don't have anything particularly good, but we do have rockets and fire bombs, perfect for setting the enemy's wooden ships on fire. Or at least they would be if they worked very well. The rockets are okay, the fire bombs you can see here, they're kind of just glitchy. The enemy sail right up to them and they just kind of start and then cancel their attack animation over and over again. Then a couple of guys do throw some towards one of the boats, and that does good damage. If the whole thing threw a bunch of grenades, we'd probably just wipe out an enemy ship instantly. But no, it doesn't really work like that, unfortunately. The nanban ship also doesn't quite work as you'd think, in a couple of different ways actually. Defensively, it's very good because the enemy will constantly try to shoot the back of it specifically with arrows, and there's something about it that aggroes the enemy. So you might have noted there, the enemy ships are just moving right past my stuff because they only want to attack my nanban ship, and they will ignore my other Kaboyas for the entire battle as long as the nanban ship is still afloat. That's incredibly useful, of course. The thing is, the nanban ship, while really good defensively, is actually quite bad offensively because of Fall of the Samurai. I think I talked about this glitch or exploit or oversight or something in my old Master of Strategy series a while ago. But basically, when Fall of the Samurai came out, it introduced the mechanic of ship armor to the game, and that armor in some way leaked back into vanilla Shogun 2, so now bow Kaboyas are considered to be armored ships, meaning cannons can't sink them, so you can shoot them with cannonballs. It just reduces their hull strength, and you have to reduce it really low before they'll start sinking, whereas before that time they would just like explode and sink all over the place if you shot them with cannons. So it's actually very hard to bring them down, and you can see their main group, while getting damaged and very demoralized by the cannon attacks, is actually still kind of alive and is gradually making its way around to the back of our ship to shoot arrows into it. Those arrows can set the ship on fire, and they'll extremely occasionally kill crew, but nothing really that will worry us in any way. So this battle, strangely, is going to be more about trying to use our fire bombs and rockets to take down these clusters of enemy ships. It looks like we've got a couple here already, so it's working. And as I said, they simply will not attack everything that's not the nanban ship. So this is actually easier than it looks. It was another decent attempt from the firebomb throwers to do some damage. Most of the shots missed, but it only takes a couple of shots to clear the decks on these things. Good stuff when it works, but it just rarely works, so that's a shame. And yes, we're still pounding the enemy's main blob with the cannons, and getting towards damaging some of them enough to sink, actually. The fire rockets are doing a decent looking job of attacking the enemy. The enemy ships look wrecked after being bombarded, but the fire rockets not only don't get many kills, but they also don't set fires that often, it seems. So it doesn't do all that much, but it looks impressive, and it gives the enemy a morale shock, so that's always nice. There was one boat here that got absolutely pummeled with rockets from front to back. Deadly stuff, but yes, they still live on. Annoyingly, the gunboat we have nearby isn't doing very well. The Teppo guys don't like to shoot very often, they're mostly just sitting around, so that's unfortunate. It seems to be a running theme with this battle. Our two sides don't really want to attack each other very much, but eventually we're winning. We even see one of their ships actually sink from the cannon attacks eventually. When I played before, I think I went in and took away the armor, and in the normal state the Kaboyas just sink after taking a volley of cannonballs basically. But there is an upside to them not sinking. They're all surrendering from lack of morale and crew death instead of sinking, and that means they're going to be left over after the fight for us to capture. As for the fight, looks like there are a few guys still wishing to participate in this naval battle for some reason. They eventually leave. We end up with this result. And you can see we've actually captured tons of stuff as a result of not destroying their fleet. So in many ways our fleet's like increased in strength 50%. Although I will need to send them all back to port to repair first. No good stats to look at, and apparently our nanban ship didn't get any kills, quote unquote, so it looks like it did badly, but I think it really helped by just breaking out the exploits. And that's where we'll leave things for this part as we enter summer. I think we're at least halfway through the waiting period to me becoming Shogun and the campaign being won, so in the next part we'll almost certainly get there unless there's some sort of major disaster, which I actually can't rule out, so I need to go play that and find out, and why don't you join me next time to see how it goes.